Shalom, more praise to the Most High. Real quick, I just want to make this quick video as I'm in the spirit of this message, right? Is the fact that we as the children of the Most High, the children of Israel, we have to do a better job at living the scriptures that we read, right? Not just be hearers of the word and not just be those who can oratate, but those who can also demonstrate, right? Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a huge fan of, and fan I use lightly, right? But a lack of better words. I should say I'm a huge advocate, right? I'm a huge advocate of those and the idea of demonstrating more than a person does the orating, because many people can speak great words. You know, they can razzle dazzle you with the articulate speech, you get what I'm saying, and great words. You know, you're like, man, that was deep, man, that was profound, wow, you saw how they said this and they did that. But yet and still, when you take a look at their life, it's like, man, you said a lot of great things, but I'm not seeing it. You get what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to that of the law. So many people can throw the law. They can give you precept upon precept upon precept upon precept upon precept when it comes to the law. But then when it comes to that of actually demonstrating it, they fail. They lack in it. Why? Well, because we come to realize that they just have knowledge, right? But knowledge is not good unless you're able to demonstrate what you know. That's the purpose of knowledge. Knowledge is for the purpose of empowerment. You get what I mean? And we have to do better at being able to be empowered so that we can have an influence in the environments that we're in. If you look at the study of, like, for instance, if you look at Elijah, right? There was an influence that he had in the environments that he was in. If you look at the situation with the prophets, for instance, there was an influence that they had because of that divine connection that they have with the Most High. So the same thing, if you look at Hamashiach, for instance, or some say to Christ, there was an influence that he had in the environment that he was in simply because he lived by the law that he taught. Okay, he didn't just have the words of the law or just the knowledge of the law, but he also had the spirit and the truth of the law that allowed him to demonstrate the law, right? And this is why the Pharisees and the scribes were so adamant about finding him in fault, because as the scripture says, and I'm going to put the scripture on the screen, it was like the people were so amazed at the authority that Yahshua Mashiach had, right? Because he didn't speak like the scribes. He didn't speak like the Pharisees, for they knew the law. They had knowledge of the law. But when it came to the actual demonstration of the law, they failed in it. And this is why Hamashiach said, you know, unless your righteousness exceed that of the Pharisees, you will not be able to make it into the kingdom of the Most High, the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of Yah. So it's easy for us to actually exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees. Believe it or not, it is so easy for us to exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees. And the way that we are able to exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees is in a couple of things. Number one, the Pharisees had a great knowledge of the law, but like I said before, they failed in being able to execute the spirit of that law. They were more people who can tell you what to do, but would not be able to show you what to do. They did a bunch of this, right? A bunch of this. They can easily find you wrong in the law, but did they know how to justify you in the law? Did they know how to esteem you in the law, right? Well, every time that we see them on the scene and they're questioning about the law, it wasn't for the purpose of trying to find that person justified by the law, but more so to condemn them by the law. Then another thing is that when they sat in Moses' seat, Yasha basically told them, listen, what they tell you to do, you should listen, because they sit in Moses' seat. It was literally a seat, right, that they sat on, and they couldn't speak anything that was against the Torah. They had to speak exactly what the Torah says. So Yasha says, what they tell you to do, listen, but don't do what they do, okay? They do things to be seen. That's part 2, about how you are able to exceed the righteousness of the Pharisee, is because they do things for clout. They like to do things to be seen, to be heard, right? But it's not for the purpose of really glorifying the Father. This is why the Mashiach, he let it be known. He was like, don't be like them. They're hypocrites. They like to have, their fringes or their tassels so long to the ground so that men will see them as being righteous, right? But were they righteous? Well, let's look at a situation, a very common situation where the Pharisees finds the woman, right, caught in adultery. And what happens? Yasha asked them a simple question. He that had of no sin to what? Cast the first stone. If they were so righteous when it came to the law, why didn't either one of them cast the first stone? Mind you, they are the Pharisees. They're always looking for a reason to bring an accusation or to bring someone under trial so that they can what? Bring a punishment or a judgment against them. Okay? So if they were so righteous when it came to the law, why were they not able to cast that stone? Well, guess what? The Mashiach exposed them. He exposed them in that situation to basically show they're not as righteous as you think they are. They are not as righteous as you think they are. So it's so easy to exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees. Number one, because they do a bunch of talking, but they don't live it. Okay? And on top of that, they do things for clout. They do things so that they can get the glory. Not so that the Father may get the glory, but that men could see their good works, right? And say, man, there's some great men. Man, they're powerful. Man, they're this, they're that. And then they beat upon their chest. And then when they walk into the feast, everything has to stop. They have to have their grand entrance, right? But then when it comes to that who are lesser degree, what do? They stun on them. You understand what I'm saying? They turn them aside. Okay? So it's easy to exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees. Matter of fact, if you continue to read Matthew 5, you'll start to see how Yasha started to teach the multitudes and his disciples on how to actually exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees. That would be a good homework for you guys to do because, when I read it for myself, I was like, oh, snap, that's the key right there. He taught in Matthew 5 exactly how to exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees. And it's in the same book where he says, don't think that I come to do away with the law. I did not come to do away with it, but to fulfill it. And then he goes on, he says, unless your righteousness exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees, you will in no way be able to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And then right after that, he starts going into those areas where the Pharisees think that they're righteous, but he's letting them know they're not righteous because the way that they're doing things. So I just wanted to drop that nugget. It's important that we learn how to be more demonstrators and less orators. Not saying that we shouldn't take time to teach, but our teaching should be more through demonstration. You understand what I'm saying? There should be a moment in time in our life where we are able to demonstrate what we have read, demonstrate what we take in, demonstrate what we meditate upon, demonstrate, not just point the finger and say, you got to do, you need to learn. But how are we able to demonstrate it in our everyday life? Number one, leading, not leading ourselves in a way that's leading unto condemnation and temptation and that of transgression, but being led by the Ruach every day of our life, right? In the manner of truth and in the manner of patience and the manner of love. And that unto the Most High, we have a reverence unto him. And then when it comes to our brethren, we know how to dedicate and to demonstrate those laws concerning our brethren, right? And we know that the scriptures teach us from the Old all the way to the New Testament, whether you subscribe to the New Testament or not, from the Old all the way to the New Testament, there is a way that is taught on how we're supposed to treat our brother. I just wanted to send this video real quick. Shalom.